their signature wins, I think, after the UFC announced that these two were going to fight each other. I think so. The UFC announced way back in January that they were going to fight. They had to do the whole. You right there, buddy?
You there?
Yeah. I didn't know if you fell over or what. So
wait, can you hear me right now?
I can hear you. Yes. So they in January the UFC announced they're going to do the Ultimate Fighter and then face off against each other. So Alexander Volkov beat Fabricio Verdum, but not until March of this year. And Curtis Blades, the other guy who's kind of been talked about as the new young up-and-comer, he beat Mark Hunt in February and then Alistair Overeem just last month. So I don't know if I can think of a guy who would be maybe more deserving in the heavyweight class. So I see this as a legitimate shot for Daniel Cormier, but I also agree with you in the fact that, you know, just because he now has 2 title belts, that he's automatically vaulted above other guys who he hasn't beat. And granted, he's only lost twice, one real defeat and one that has turned into a no contest thanks to John Jones's positive test for whatever he tested positive for. But I think most MMA fans at this point are kind of being realistic, looking like, okay, you know what? And you and I have talked about this throughout different sports throughout our time doing shows together, whether it be fighting or the NBA or baseball or football. Like guys are going to do things to try to push their performance to the next level. And some guys do it thinking they're taking a supplement that is legal. And some guys do it knowing they're taking a supplement that is illegal, and they try to take their chances. And who really knows at this point in time in 2018, with just all the different social factors going in to what guys have to go through, who is trying to be clean and just gets popped dirty, and who is trying to be dirty and just trying to test clean and get away from it and happens to get punished for it. So John Jones, you know, I think the only recourse for that is like, you know what? Yes, sure, suspend him for a year, suspend him for a year and a half. You know, he shouldn't have done those things, but I don't think anyone looks at the fight versus Daniel Cormier last year and said Daniel Cormier would have definitely beat John Jones if John Jones hadn't tested positive. I mean, John Jones was taking control of, you know, 75, 80% of that fight. Daniel Cormier had some moments, but I mean, John Jones just seems to have Daniel Cormier's number, and not even just Daniel Cormier. He has everyone's number. I mean, his only loss is a disqualification loss to the face of Matt Hamill when he elbowed him 12-6. They decided to DQ him for that. If he was whatever 24-0 right now instead of 23-1, and everyone's trying to say that Daniel Cormier is the greatest of all time, or top 4 or top 5, or the greatest light heavyweight or heavyweight ever, it's just, to me, it's kind of a victim of the moment type of thing. Yes, it was an amazing moment. Yes, I was excited for Daniel Cormier, even though I'm not his hugest fan. I mean, it's just kind of it's always fun to see big, shocking, exciting moments in mixed martial arts live, and that's, you know, how I watched it. So that was exciting for me, but I don't think anyone is looking at him and saying, you know what, he has totally overcome the losses to John Jones. He is a totally different fighter. Nothing about John Jones defines what Daniel Cormier has done, which I've seen some writers say. Look, he still has those things against John Jones. He lost decisively both times, even if the record book only says it was once. And, you know, I think, like you said, he's probably somewhere in the 5 to 10 range of best of all time. But, I mean, people try to kind of discount history. And, you know, it kind of depends on, like, okay, well, will you say Royce Gracie is one of the best of all time? Obviously, he wouldn't beat guys of today, but with the legacy he has and being able to dominate the first few UFCs, does he kind of make his way in the conversation, or are we talking about pure skill? So I don't see how people can possibly vault Daniel Cormier over John Jones. And, you know, maybe you can say he's the second best light heavyweight of all time. And if he beats John Jones and they fight again, then, hey, open to discussion. But as of right now, I think it's just a little bit of prisoner of the moment talk. But all of this talk just makes me really want to see Daniel Cormier versus John Jones 3 at heavyweight. I don't know about you, Bobby.
Oh, absolutely. And that's the thing. If you're going to consider him one of the best of all time, you have... Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. If you're going to consider him one of the best of all time, then he's got to beat one of the best of all time. And twice we saw him not be able to beat John Jones. the best at his weight class in his division. Like, how can you consider him one of the top 5 fighters of all time if you can't even beat the best fighter in his weight class? It just blows my mind. It's one of those things that I'm just like, I don't get how people even consider him that great, because of the fact that, yes, he's a good fighter, yes, he's won all his other fights, but he's never beat the best. So he got handed a belt, his first belt, just because of all the technicality.
Right.
And like you said, I think there should be a third fight there just to prove it. John Jones better get his head out of his ass and finally realize that he needs to stop messing up, or his career is over. There is no third chance. Right. This is it.
Yeah.
You're done after this. So I think with all that in mind, he will be a completely clean fight like the first fight was, and he'll get his ass kicked again. I just don't see how Cormier will ever beat John Jones, for one, and for two, I just don't see him being a top 5 fighter ever, because he can't beat John Jones. John Jones, in my opinion, top 3 of all time, if he can just keep his head above ground.
Yeah.
Now, with all that being said, yes, he beat Stipe. He won that title outright. But the fact that he just instantly jumps into the heavyweight division again and instantly gets a title fight is just Dana White sucking kneecaps like he always does with the guys that he chooses to like more than others.
Yeah.
And that's what I don't like about the UFC. I don't like how Dana White's just like, oh yeah, you know what, you're a title holder, we're going to throw you and you're going to get a title fight again. You know, he does that with McGregor. And don't get me wrong, I love McGregor as a fighter, but he does that with McGregor. He does that with Cormier and certain guys that he just loves more than others and lets them get away with whatever they want. They get the Showtime, they get the Fox interviews, they get all this stuff, and it just blows my mind that the UFC is controlled in that way, where just one guy controls every aspect of who's going to be popular and who's not.
Yeah.
So with that in mind, I think Cormier is a good fighter. I just think that there's other guys that could have been given the opportunity that have been proving themselves to get that title fight, that the fact that he just got thrown back into the heavyweight division and said, here you go ahead, here's the title.
Yeah.
He won, but I still don't think it was right.
Yeah. So that's all about the fight, all about Daniel Cormier's legacy. But after the fight, Daniel Cormier calls Brock Lesnar, into the ring, into the cage, into the octagon, and pretty much does like a little WWE promo with Brock Lesnar. Brock Lesnar shoves Daniel Cormier. Daniel Cormier's little sidekick strength training guy shoves Brock Lesnar and barely makes him move. Brock Lesnar says some bad words that definitely would not have aired on Fox if it were a Fox card. He pretty much calls Stipe a piece of shit and a bunch of other guys a piece of shit, and then says, you know, a couple of F-bombs, and then Cormier actually had the best line in this, which I think he probably scripted beforehand. He probably was thinking about this the entire time that he was hoping he was going to win his fight, where he says, "Push me now, sleep later." I think that was a pretty good line by Daniel Cormier. I gotta give him that one. But I mean, I don't know. A lot of people are really split on this whole thing. Obviously, it seemed like it was a little bit contrived. And Brock Lesnar doesn't have an official win, I think, in the last 5 years. His last fight was against Mark Hunt, I guess 2 years ago. And that win got turned into a no contest because Brock Lesnar tested positive as well. He served 6 months of his USADA suspension, but then he retired, so he still has 6 months left to serve. So we're guessing that we're going to have Cormier versus Brock Lesnar in March. But like I said, that confrontation really split a lot of people. A lot of people thought it was off-putting, that it was too much like wrestling, and that stuff should be left to the fake sports. Whereas a lot of people kind of had a different take, saying, yes, it's wrestling, but this is awesome. Why pretend that, you know, we want anything else? This isn't like a true sport like, you know, baseball or football. This is an entertainment product, and it just so happens they end up fighting at the end. Did you see the whole interaction between Brock and DC, and where do you fall in the spectrum between loving it or hating it?
I'm literally watching it right now for the first time. I didn't get to see this live, but it's hilarious how his little trainer, Sanchez, doesn't move a muscle. You can totally tell it's contrived, because Dana White shoves that little guy out of the way after he pushes Brock Lesnar and says, makes it seem like it's completely contrived.
Yeah, no, and you know what? I kind of watching it, I was kind of cringing, but you know what? Like, as long as they fight, you know, as long as they throw real punches and try to knock each other out and try to win the fight at the end, like, I don't really care what they do to try to hype up the fight. I've heard that Brock Lesnar and Daniel Cormier are actually friends, so it's not like they have any real animosity. So they're kind of doing the heel versus, you know, babyface type of thing like they would in wrestling. Which, you know, Daniel Cormier is a huge wrestling fan. I think, you know, it's a guy who has been seen at a lot of large WWE shows in the past. So it would not be out of the realm of possibility for Daniel to talk to Brock Lesnar beforehand and said, hey, if I win this fight, we got to start trying to sell this thing already. I'm going to call you into the cage and we're going to do something about it. So, you know, I don't have a huge problem with it. It wasn't really the thing that you know, was making my night. Like for some people it was. Some people thought that was better than the fight and the entire card. I wouldn't go that far, but you know, hey, if it can sell more pay-per-views and get these guys paid more money, which would hopefully, you know, get other guys into the sport that thinking that they can make more money, then I'm all for it. So
it kind of looks like Cormier flops too when that happens.
Right.
Like when he pushes him, his arms flail.
Yeah.
Like there's no way he pushed you that hard that you're going to have that reaction.
You also have to know, Brock Lesnar is just an enormous human being. Like Daniel Cormier, he's like a 240 and he's chubby. Brock Lesnar is like 270 and he is just ripped. So, you know, it very possibly could have been like he just wasn't expecting him to push him that hard and like, whoa, you know, maybe a little bit of flopping, a little bit of just unpreparedness for a big shove from a big Nordic man. Who knows? But
dude, he is way bigger than Cormier. I'm watching this video.
He's like 5 inches taller and probably 40 pounds heavier. And Cormier came into the fight at like 240. So he was Cormier weighed more than Stipe. It's wild.
Well, even the guys in the red that are holding him back are smiling and laughing and stuff too. Like
the ushers were like, one of the ushers like tried to get in the way of Brock Lesnar, like right after he pushed Cormier, and he just like looking up into his eyes, like, please, Mr. Lesnar, do not kill me. I'm making $12 an hour doing this. I just want to wear my little blazer. I just don't want to get hurt by the beast.
He keeps throwing his arm around too, like pushing his arm out of the way, and the guy's like, that probably hurts.
I know. Yeah, they're gonna have to get some hazard pay there for the Vegas security guards because they weren't expecting this.
You know what they need? They need Herb Dean. Herb Dean, get involved.
Herb Dean,
get in between.
Herb would probably jump in there and probably slap a rear naked choke on Brock and put him to sleep. Like, don't worry, Daniel, I got you.
Yeah.
All right. So there was another heavyweight fight on this historic card. One that everyone is looking forward to. One that everyone was circling and highlighting and saying there is no way, absolutely no way, that this fight is a bad fight. It may only last 30 seconds, but it is going to be exciting as hell. And boy, did the MMA gods play a joke on all of us. Derek Lewis, Francis Ngannou, two of the biggest knockout artists in heavyweight history, with a lot of bad blood between them, talking online and whatnot. Francis Ngannou whispering in Derek Lewis's ear at the ceremonial weigh-in, saying, I'm going to knock you out or put you to sleep. Derek Lewis giving him a big shove, big Brock Lesnar shove. And he thought, okay, here we go. This is going to set the table for the heavyweight title fight, and it's going to be great. And I'm afraid for Derek Lewis, but I love him, and I hope he wins. But I also kind of want to see what happens if Francis Ngannou knocks out Derek Lewis. Well, you know what? Maybe the worst heavyweight fight, at least at this high profile ever. Francis Ngannou just looked like he became... Someone joked on Twitter, and I thought this was probably the best line of it, is that Stipe is officially the GOAT. He not only beat Francis Ngannou, he turned Francis Ngannou into a pacifist. Because Ngannou, he barely threw any strikes. I mean, it was so bewildering, the fact he just stood there kind of, fainting every once in a while and kind of faking something. But it almost looked like he was so nervous of having any contact with Derek Lewis that he didn't want to throw anything. And Derek Lewis wasn't much better. He threw more strikes and he kind of half landed some of those. He said afterward that his back was hurting him, and I know his back has given him problems throughout the last few years, which kind of puts a worry into Derek Lewis fans' eyes and thinking that he might have to retire for real this time because of his back. So the performance by both of them was terrible, and then Ngannou did not have talked to the press afterwards, but a couple days later, put out a statement saying, quote, "I am not proud of my last performance. I have carried